Our journey through the American National Parks begins in the northwest corner of Wyoming with the crown jewel of the American National Park system, Yellowstone. On a high plateau far above the boiling magma of the Earth's interior lies the largest geothermal area of the world. And the trademark of this park and the system as a whole, Old Faithful, lives up to its name with a spectacular show every 71 minutes. In the 19th century, trappers went east with stories of spouting columns of water 60 feet high, bubbling hot springs of iridescent green and gold. Their stories were regarded as lies, and it wasn't until Jim Bridger led the first U.S. expeditionary team into the region in 1859 that the American people became aware of this amazing land. Over 10,000 geothermal features can be found in the park. No other place on Earth offers such an amazing assortment of spouting geysers and bubbling hot springs. What exactly is happening here? Well, it is all an ultimate result of rain. Water seeps down into the fractured crust of the plateau until it reaches the molten lava a mile below the surface. The water boils and the weight above causes it to superheat. Finally, it explodes, rushing to the surface, turning to billowing steam as it makes its violent and furious escape. The mud volcanoes, the paint pots, and the hot springs all add to the eerie netherworld quality of this popular park. For here in Yellowstone, the geothermal features point out clearly the violent and furious activity far below the surface of this fragile planet we call home. But all of Yellowstone is not a bubbling cauldron. Nature has provided a panorama of variety here. The Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone is one of the park's most impressive features. Golden limestone, carved by time, has given the park its colorful and descriptive name. Two beautiful waterfalls add to the majesty of this canyon region. The Upper Falls sends the Yellowstone River down a short, narrow channel of about a mile. And then the river descends in a fury over the mighty, thundering Lower Falls, twice the height of Niagara, a never-ending, ceaseless example of nature's carving tools. Here on the high plateau, man is a recent arrival, a visitor as it were. And while 2.5 million people may visit this park annually, they are merely guests. Here, the animals roam the open plains. Man watches from a distance, then leaves. In Yellowstone, the land, in many respects, still belongs to the buffalo, the mountain sheep, the deer, and the elk. As visitors, we stand and watch and can easily imagine what this region must have been like long before man arrived, when giant herds of wild animals roamed the open plains and called the land their own. And now from Mesa Verde in Colorado, to complete a triangle with arches, we move back to Utah and the majestic Bryce Canyon. Stretching out before you in hues of red and gold, this colossal wedding cake-like canyon is to many people the most spectacular geological site of our nation. Here, 60 million years of geology are laid bare. It began with endless layers of sediment deposited by inland seas, followed by mountain building, plateau formation, and endless years of rain and wind and erosion. What has resulted is really not a canyon at all, but rather a fissured, eroded face of the southern Utah plateau. John Wesley Powell led the first scientific team into the region in 1871. Earlier, a Mormon pioneer by the name of Ebenezer Bryce passed through the region briefly, leaving the canyon with two things: its name and the somewhat unromantic observation that it was a devil of a place to lose a cow. Today, the various trails will take you deep into the canyon. You can make the trip on foot, or if you prefer, you can let a horse do the hard work and make the journey in the saddle. Regardless of the method you choose, it's a trip you should make, for only by going to the bottom of Bryce Canyon can you feel the true majesty of this sculptured stone. Cathedrals of nature soar into the sky. Pinnacles of stone appear as columns of the Acropolis. It's a bewildering ruin, an enchanted landscape, standing proudly below the rim of the southern Utah Plateau. An amphitheater of stone filled with silent chessmen, patiently awaiting nature's next move. From Bryce Canyon in Utah, we now move back to where we began, and the partner to Yellowstone National Park, the Grand Tetons. Rising from the plains with all the majesty a mountain range can possess are the Grand Tetons, the most spectacular mountain range of North America and the boldest spectacle of scenery in the entire national park system. Many mountain ranges are taller, many far more massive, but none offer the infinite perspective of view, for these mountains rise directly from the plains without foothills. 11 of the mountains are considered to be major peaks. The tallest, the Grand Teton itself, rises 14,000 feet. In 1806, John Coulter left the Lewis and Clark expedition to explore the back country on his own, and he was probably the first white man to set eyes onto this range. And in 1926, John D. Rockefeller was so taken with the beauty of the range that he purchased 30,000 acres of the Jackson Hole Basin and presented them to the government as a wildlife sanctuary. Today, visitors come in ever-increasing numbers. Last year, 4 million, far more than visit Yellowstone immediately to the north. They come because of the infinite variety of activities the park offers. For here you'll find boating, swimming, horseback riding, rodeos at Jackson Hole, an endless variety of leisure time activities, including the park's most popular sport, which is mountain climbing. Perhaps, though, you're not ready for the strenuous activity in the ropes just yet. Well, if you would still like to have another view on these mountains, you can ride the tram at Teton Village. This 2.5-mile tram ride will take you 10,000 feet into the range, to the top of Rendezvous Peak. The tram was originally built to transport winter skiers, and during the cold winter months, thousands of people ride the tram to the top of Rendezvous Peak and have stretched out before them a near-endless snow-packed slope. During the summer months, of course, the snows melt at the lower elevations, and you can feel the changing panorama as we rise and pass the timberline. Another of the park's impressive features is the beautiful Snake River. It meanders gently through the Jackson Hole Basin. Within the park boundaries, you can enjoy a leisurely float trip on a rubber raft. But if you're a bit more adventuresome, you might like to try a whitewater experience. To do this, you must actually leave the park itself and journey downstream a few miles to where the active rapids of the river begin. So hold on, prepare to get wet, and let's ride down the Snake. And then just as quickly as the rapids began, they end, and the violent churning river once again becomes a quiet, peaceful mountain stream. Another view and another perspective on these, the Grand Teton Mountains, the most spectacular mountain range of North America and a kingpin of the National Park System. From the Tetons, we now move to the state of Arizona and the majestic Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon stands apart as one of life's greater episodes. To stand on the rim of the stupendous gorge as it receives its earliest greetings from the god of day is to enjoy in a moment compensation for long years of ordinary, uneventful life. So wrote John Stoddard, the great travel writer, in 1898 of this spectacular wonder of the Arizona desert. Carved by the Colorado River, this gem of geology stands alone as one of the world's great sights. How do you describe such an attraction? Superlatives abound. The longest, the deepest, the widest, the biggest, they all apply here in this sculptured cathedral of stone. Today, visitors come from the four corners of the globe. They stand on the rim and gaze down a full mile as each contemplates the persistent forces of nature that have been at work here for so very long. Visitors still write the traditional "wish you were here" postcard as each attempts to convey in a few lines some of the powerful emotions this canyon evokes. And for the hearty traveler, the trails beckon. Bright Angel Trail, the most popular, will take you all the way to the bottom of the canyon in one of the world's most strenuous hikes. Each year, thousands of people make this trek as they attempt to find out firsthand some of the varying moods of the canyon walls. Many go down only part way, others travel all the way to the bottom, to the Phantom Ranch and the river. But regardless of how far down you go, as you take each step on the rough and rocky trail, there is a gnawing realization that you must come back out. There will be no helicopter, no elevator, no escalator. You get yourself out of the Grand Canyon just as you got yourself in, with your legs. And believe me, the trek back out is much, much harder than the trek in. As you near the bottom, the perspective changes. Instead of looking down, you now look up. Cactus blossoms provide a foreground for a new and different angle of view. And at the bottom of the canyon is the mighty Colorado River, still carving, still doing its job, gouging this gorge deeper and deeper. From a distance, the river appears minute in relation to the canyon walls. But as you grow close and stand over the churning stream, you grow to understand some of the powerful forces of nature that have been at work here for so very long. Yes, it's the Grand Canyon. Awesome, spectacular, and fun. Don't miss it. You can hardly afford to pass by the greatest national treasure we have. Now from the state of Arizona, we move east to the state of Florida and the endless Everglades. Few parks of the National Park System bring to mind such specific images as this vast swamp on the tip of the Floridian Peninsula. And few parks live up to those expectations less. Here you will likely find your preconceived ideas to be challenged. The endless groves of cypress trees entwined with Spanish moss hardly exist at all. Most of the Everglade is an endless sea of sawgrass, standing quietly in the brackish swamp. After you discover this, you can leave angry and disappointed, or you can stay and explore what the park has to offer. If you choose the latter, you will be richly rewarded and will soon grow to realize that this is one of our most special national parks. Wildlife abounds, often in small, common forms, sometimes large, rather uncommon forms. These leatherback turtles crawl onto the shore during the summer months to lay their eggs. And as you watch this small rite of nature, you grow to realize that all of the years of protection have dampened these creatures' natural fears of man. Will you see the Everglades' most popular resident during the summer months? Yes, even in summer you will see him. But you're more likely to find the alligators in the cool winter months when the glades dry up and they congregate among the few remaining water holes. These giant reptiles roam freely through the park, often crossing the visitor's path. And yet the Park Service rarely reports an accident. Alligators are actually quite shy and not likely to attack human beings unless provoked. And a tribute to the park visitors is that most people understand the rights of the natural inhabitants and are aware of the fact that they are merely visitors in these protected lands. But to appreciate all of the different ways the Earth has changed, we now move far to the west, 2,500 miles into the Pacific, to the state of Hawaii and Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Ringing the big island of Hawaii are the black sand beaches, and these beaches tell a part of the story of this park, for the sand is lava, broken and splintered by the endless surf. For Hawaii is a vast chain, 1,600 miles long, 132 islands strong, 7 of them inhabited, each and every one a volcano that has arisen from the sea. Because of the difference in the mineral makeup of these various volcanic rocks, the erosion didn't always take place in the same way. On the island of Oahu, these red iron-laden cliffs didn't erode into sand, but rather the beautiful and jagged cliff formations that you see along the leeward coast of the island today. And on the big island of Hawaii, in the center of the national park, Kilauea Crater still spits its steam and vapors. This is one of the most active volcanoes in the world. It has been in some sort of eruption for nearly 100 years. The mountain of Mauna Kea on the Big Island is the tallest mountain in the world if you measure it from its base at the floor of the Pacific Ocean. 14,000 feet above the surface and 19,000 feet below the surface make this taller than even the peak of Mount Everest in the Himalaya range. In time, the lava snaked its way over the existing layers, and as it did, it crumbled, and through rain and wind and pounding seas, it was pulverized into the unique red, dusty soil that Hawaii was to offer as a foundation for the life that was to come millions of years later. When life did arrive on the islands, it found a hostile environment. The trees that managed to survive were destroyed countless times in the never-ending growth of the islands. On the island of Maui stands Haleakala, a separate national park. In Hawaiian, Haleakala means House of the Sun. Today, this is the largest dormant volcano in the world, rising 12,000 feet above the ocean surface. And this too will one day, again in the future, erupt and explode in a violent fury, creating the same type of displays that Kilauea Crater offers the visitor today who is lucky enough to be on hand to witness these spectacular displays from the Earth's inner core. This time, the state of New Mexico, the southeastern corner, and the world-renowned Carlsbad Caverns. On a high, dry, desolate plateau, in a place where you would never expect to find a cave, because caves are almost always created out of wet, mountainous regions, a young cowboy by the name of Jim White was riding the open plain on horseback in 1904. On the horizon, he saw what he thought was the billowing smoke of an awesome fire. But as he rode in nearer, he realized that what he had thought was smoke was instead millions and millions of bats flying into the night air out of a massive hole in the cliff. He ventured in closer. He lit a piece of dead cactus and dropped it into the chasm. He had discovered the most amazing system of caves in the world, a system that would be named Carlsbad. A few days later, he coaxed a young Mexican to accompany him, and together with only a lantern, they ventured deep into the cave, and what they discovered was truly amazing. for their smoky kerosene light illuminated for the first time in the history of the world a place that had been in total blackness since the beginning of time. And what had occurred in that blackness was truly amazing. Giant, staggering limestone formations created by the painstakingly slow process of single drops of mineral-laden water. Gigantic rooms, one large enough to hold the entire U.S. Capitol building. An amazing, awesome, silent, subterranean world. But for the early settlers of the West, this was not to be marveled at for its beauty, but rather exploited for its riches. Mining claims were staked, and within 20 years, 4 mining companies had taken 100,000 tons of bat guano out of the cave as commercial fertilizer. In 1923, the U.S. government gave the caverns protection, and today you can venture deep into these caves, gaze on these stalactile draperies, and see with ease what nature has spent millions of years in creating. Carlsbad Caverns, one of the most amazing spots on Earth, in one of the most unlikely places of the world. From the state of New Mexico, we now move west to the state of California, the High Sierra Mountains, and Yosemite National Park. This park, along with the Grand Canyon and the Tetons, stands as one of the 3 crown jewels of our nation's scenic heritage. And we begin our visit to the Yosemite Valley, not in summer with throngs of visitors, but rather winter, when the visitor stands alone among the snow-capped peaks. Winter is a breathtaking time of year in Yosemite, a time when these magnificent mountains are deceptively softened by an endless blanket of snow. High in the mountains, the Upper Falls continues to cascade over the cliff, leaving an icy, frosty mist along the granite wall. Yes, this is the time of year to come, a time to relax, enjoy some winter sports, and perhaps brush up on your skiing. Yosemite has the oldest ski school in the state of California. Ski schools, of course, are notorious meeting places for single people. Well, here at Yosemite is a ski school where everyone you meet is guaranteed to be single, although not necessarily looking for a mate. But once you have the hang of it, you can give it a whirl as the Badger Pass runs, beckoning you on to the endless snowpack slopes. Here in Yosemite, the snows fall and melt quickly, but frequent storms replenish the winter blanket. The clouds roll in and cling like cotton to the granite walls. The temperatures drop and the snows begin to fall, and within a few hours, Yosemite is turned into a lonely gray world of snow and ice. Now, to end our journey, we're going to pause for a few moments and thumb back through our album of portraits and listen. For here in the national parks, the lyric, "God shed his grace on thee," is oh so very real. Americans have been graced with the most extraordinary collection of God's wonders on earth, and it is our duty and our responsibility to preserve and protect these lands as the true national treasures they are. For these parks are worth more than all the gold of Fort Knox. These parks are one of America's greatest assets as a nation. In 1956, a government report observed that the national parks were an investment in the physical, spiritual, and mental well-being of the American people. Moreover, they were an investment in something as simple and yet as basic as good citizenship, love of country. Throughout the history of America, there have been many, many good times, and there have been some bad times. And in both the good times and the bad times, these parks, in a small way, do help to remind us that yes, America, God did shed his grace on thee.